And we are away. We're away with the recording. Well remembered. Thank you, Michael.
James,
Duncan.
it's Duncan. The gear and Karulaka is available online, so you
Oh,
can yeah. So if you just put in new Pali course and then PDF, you'll find it. It's on archive.org. So if anyone
ah,
wants to find it,
um, okay, just hang on, let me just make a note of that. So, so I mean, presumably you meant a new course in reading Pali, which
no,
is
no,
it?
no. If you put into Google new Pali course
Ah,
space PDF, you'll find it.
okay, so that's interesting. So the Google search, they've got a title which is similar to, but not the same as the actual title of the
Yeah.
book. Okay, thanks very much for that. I will test that out and share that link. I did actually at one point find a rather difficult to use PDF of it. Some PDF formats are easier to use than others. But anyway, Duncan, I'll find this and see how it works. So
Right, where are we?
so you should all be able to see shared screen. Metta Sutta, verse 3.
Okay.
Can you all see it?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So we had mostly done verse 3. So what I'll do, I'll just read it through once slowly in more of a prose voice than a chanting voice. And then any questions, I'll be happy to deal with. Bring up my copy. न च क्षुद्रं समाचरे किञ्चि येन विन्नु परे उपवदेयुं सुखिनो वखेमिनो हन्तु सबे सत्ता भवन्तु सुखितत्ता. Sorry. I'm just looking after somebody's dog at the moment. Yeah, wait till I finish. So were there any particular queries arising out of that or comments? In which case we'll move on to, or if not, we'll move on to verse 4.
Verse 4.
I'm sorry, say again, I didn't catch. Was that you speaking, Krista?
No, I was just talking to myself.
Ah, right. Talking to yourself unmuted. Okay. Just so I can be sure, Rajit, have you received all of the material for these classes? I can't remember whether you were on the original.
Well, the short answer is, firstly, I'm not 100% sure if this is a Pali class or a chanting class. But I did buy all the textbooks that you put on your list for
Okay,
Pali
right, yeah.
class. I got all of them. I happened to be in Sri Lanka, and there was a good bookshop selling many of them as well.
Ah, excellent. Well, that's actually a query that somebody else raised. Is it a chanting class? The answer is no, it's not, because we're using two books and alternating between two. One is the Garanatilaka New Course in Reading Pali, and the other is texts from the Samatha Chanting Book. I think some people had misinterpreted that to read it was a chanting class, which it's not. I wish I were able to teach chanting. I wish I were able to chant properly. Regrettably, I don't rank it among my skills, despite efforts made by Rachel Hall, who will be known to many of you. Despite her efforts, So it's not a chanting class. It's just we're using texts from the Samatha Chanting Book. At the moment, we're going through the Karaneya Metta Sutta as part of the Samatha Chanting Book series. What I'm proposing to do, and you've now kind of reminded me that I can tell you, I'll put it in writing quite soon, is I just chose this first because I had other materials that I already got ready and prepared some time ago. So you might say out of sheer convenience slash laziness even, it was convenient to use that as the first text to study. However, what I'm proposing to do is to go methodically through our Samatha Chanting Book, um, leaving out ones that we don't commonly do, but including all of the ones that we commonly do. So certainly the chants that we commonly do in Manchester and probably around Samatha as well. So that's what I will be doing, and I'll list the ones that I will be going through, and equally, if anybody has any particular request, then for something that's not on the list, I will happily include it. So hopefully that's clear. Though Rajit, you've reminded me that there's something that does require further clarification in writing, since some people seem to have thought that it was a chanting class simply because of reference to the Samatha Chanting Book. I hope I have not disappointed anyone by saying that this will not be a Samatha chanting class. This is heavily focused on the actual language. There are those within Samatha who are very, very much more qualified than I to teach chanting. There were a couple of questions sent to me, but they were not by anyone in this class here. So what I'm proposing to do when questions are sent in about the texts we've been reading, I'll wait until we're at a class where the people who've raised those questions are present. So we will move now, and I'm just going to So that was just to turn on the do not disturb function on my phone. I've suffered embarrassing moments in the past by having failed to activate the do not disturb. So ye ke chipan bhutatti tasava tavarava anavasesa dighava ye mahantava majjhima rasaka anukathula. I've made an error in the Devanagari there. I should have put Tavara Va Anavasesa. I will correct that. I made a note to correct that. So Shalaka, you may well have noticed my error in the Devanagari there. So this Vana should be Vana, not Vana.
Yes.
So Yekechi. For several of these grammatical areas, like Yekechi, there's a grammatical explanation for it. It means whoever in the plural. I have referred sometimes to Perniola and sometimes to Duroisel in the notes. Duroisel is a very much more comprehensive grammar, available in an extremely to use PDF, which I shall also send to you. I'm just going to make a note to that. And for those who are new, if this appears a little bit disjointed in places, it's because it is a little bit disjointed in places, because having only fairly recently started this series, things keep coming to light that I should have done but haven't yet done, and I'm making notes to do. So Yekeichi, you is the relative pronoun meaning who. For those of you who know Hindi, it's the equivalent of the Hindi jo. So, and ko, kah, and ko is who. If you put together which who, so you ko chi with a chi at the end means whoever, put it into the plural yikechi, literally which who chi, and it just has the meaning of whichever persons. Yani kani chi means whatever things. Yekechi, whatever. Oh, sorry, whoever as a masculine plural. So yekechi, bhanabhutati, whatever living beings that there are. There's some Phanabhuta, literally breath beings. It's from the, oops. Okay, is the iPad visible? Okay, thanks. It's from the simple root an, meaning to breathe. And it makes a verbal noun, ana, breathing. Ana, breathing, tends not to be used on its own. It tends to be used with a verbal prefix. So, for example, with the Sanskrit prefix, which then in Pali becomes but a p, the pra plus ana gives our well-known prana. So prana, literally breathing forth, or just breathing. And prana is what becomes in Pali ana. Bhuta, from the root bhu, it makes a regular past participle, bhuta. So bhuta literally means been, or that which has come to be, something that has come to be in existence. It also means something, or something that just is. For example, we have the well-known phrase in the neuter form. Oops. Sorry, my pen sometimes plays up. Yatha bhutam, yatha as, bhutam, that which has come into existence. And the stop phrase yatha bhutam means as it is. You see things as they are. Yatha bhutam. It also means a living being, or any kind of being, actually. And that's where we get the phrase panabhuta, which is what we have here. So panabhuta, literally breath being. So it's another way of saying living beings. Oddly enough, it also means that which has been, and can occasionally, well, certainly in modern Hindi, I don't know whether it's the same in Marathi, shall I call it, in modern Hindi, you have bhoot and pret, meaning words for ghosts, bhoot and pret, bhoot. Do you use the same expression in Marathi for that?
Yes, it has
Okay,
the same meaning.
okay. So bhut means somebody who, in Sanskrit, in Pali, bhuta and peta, in modern Hindi would be pronounced bhut and pret. So bhut is somebody who has been, and a pret is somebody who has gone beyond. And so bhut pret is you used to mean ghosts, the spirits of the departed. But here it just means beings. All of these derived meanings arise from the simple verb bhu, to be, and bhuta, as I say, is equivalent of past participle been. So breath beings. It's actually bhana. This is a shortened form here. Let me call it up again. If this were written out in full prose, this bhutati would be bhana bhutati. It's just shortened in poetry to bhana bhutati. If you, on its own, as I say, would bhana bhuta, breath beings. Some of you may be wondering why it is that the singular form of the verb ati, which is the Sanskrit asti, is used when you would expect the plural. The plural would be santi. You might be wondering that. The answer is, when the verb ati is used just to denote that something exists, you often find that it's used in the singular when you would expect a plural. For example, if you say those people are monks, you say they bhikkhu santi in the plural. But if you said there are a lot of monks there, you say bahula bhikkhu atti, just to indicate the existence of something, you were allowed to use the verb in the singular when you would not normally expect the plural. It's a bit like the French il y a, or the Spanish hay, meaning just to indicate the existence of something. And that's what it means here. Whatever living beings there are. So tasava tavarava anavasesa. Tasa, it's from a root meaning to thras, meaning to tremble, and by extension to be fearful. It is incidentally the same root as that from which we have the English word terror. It's a terror. It used to be tersor in Latin with an S, but that in later Latin then that changed to a double R. So it's the same one. So trembling or frightened beings, so timid, you might say, bold or timid. So tasava tavarava anavasesa. So tasa then is trembling literally, or timid. Tavara means firm or stable. Interesting derivation there, because we have our root sta, meaning to stand, and we have in Pali stavara, sorry, Sanskrit stavara. That my pen is playing up again.
Sorry, James.
Are you
Should we be
writing?
on the note?
Sorry, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
In Sanskrit, it will be stavara. In Pali, tavara. That is the same word that becomes stabilis. So a problem with my pen here. That's the same word that becomes stabilis in Latin, which we have in English as stable. Here, stable in the sense of firm or strong. There's another one from that same root in Sanskrit, stavira, meaning stable or of long standing, some person or something who's been there for a long time. And that word actually becomes, stavira becomes tera, quite a considerable phonetic mutation there, but that stavira becomes tera in Pali, and that is the Thera that is often translated as an elder, as in Theravada, the doctrine of the elders. So from Sanskrit into Pali, it's undergone quite a phonetic mutation. Curiously enough, the English form is still much closer to the old Sanskrit, stabila, stabilis, stable in the sense of long standing. So that is the etymological derivation of the word Thera. So anavasesa means without remainder. I've explained it down at the bottom. From shish is to leave over, call it up, to leave over or to leave remaining. If something is, we got it here, yes, avasesa, from the root, Vedic root shish, so avasesa, avashesha in Sanskrit, is just means remaining, left over. And negate that, anavasesa means with no remainder, with nothing left out. So without any exception. So when we use the sava anavasesa, the anavasesa means with nothing left out. So absolutely wholly inclusive of all beings. Dighavaye mahantava majjhima rasaka anuka thula. We've got two words here that also appear in the names of the Pali Canon. Digha, meaning long, or when applied to human beings, tall, and majjhima, medium. In fact, the Sanskrit madhyama, Pali majjhima, and Latin medium, medius, from which we have medium, are etymologically the same word. Mahanta, it's one of the plural forms of our well-known adjective maha, meaning great, as in Maharaja. Rasaka, it's just another word meaning small, and anu is the Sanskrit and Pali word for literally means an atom, as understood in the physics of the time. So if it is the anu is the atom, and if something is anuka, it's like atomically small, something like that. So you're everything from the huge and the enormous down to the microscopically or atomically small. And Tula, Sanskrit stula, just means large or thick or stout. It could well be etymologically connected with our English word stolid, a variant of solid. So stula, and in Pali, tula. So I'll just read it through slowly once, and then let me know any queries or comments that you may have. Yeke chipan bhutatti tasava thavarava anavasesa dighava ye mahantava majjhima rasaka anukathula. So hopefully also you will have had a chance to read down the various notes that I've done. So with what we've been through, do there remain any doubts, comments, or queries you would like to share? Please, Michael, come in.
Is there a reason that there aren't more was, more VAs sort of between each adjective? Is that just a stylistic choice?
You often okay, so we've got the va there and a va there, whether one or the other or the other. And we've got a va there, and okay, so we've got 4. It would have been not incorrect to put a va between each single one. It would have sounded a bit heavy, but it's certainly not incorrect. You very often find that these particles cha and va, api, pi, you very often find that I feel almost shy about saying it, that the Pali poets will include or omit them at will to either increase or reduce the number of syllables in the line. So it's an optional insert. So if he was, for example, if the poet had been short of a couple of syllables in that second line, he could have put in va twice. If he found that he'd got too many syllables in the line, he could, for example, omitted this va here. So you very often find that there's no actual rule. The answer is it's optional whether you use them or not. If there is a meaning of or, then you've got to use at least one. But whether you then repeat it after every related noun is optional. Just as rather in English, you can put and between everything in a list, or you can omit all the ands and put the and in just before the last element in the list. There's no rule. It's optional and largely a matter of style. As I say, often a matter of getting in the correct number of syllables, longs and shorts, to fit the poetic meter.
Got it. Thank you.
Right. By the way, there's some Panabhuta. Just go back to where I said from the an to ana, the in-breathing and out-breathing. The in-breathing, the prefix meaning, sorry, I'm writing on my iPad here. There we are. I'm just looking at the ana here. You can put the verbal prefix a indicating motion towards. So a plus ana by sandhi just becomes ana. So the a and the a merge into a single a. So ana means in-breathing. And appa means off or away, or in this context, out. So appa plus ana becomes appana. So I myself in a twister. So if you put ana plus appana, that's what gives us the anapanasati sutta. The ana, apana, in breathing, out breathing. There's anapana by sandhi with a merger of those vowels. So the anapanasati, that's the in-breathing, out-breathing mindfulness. So the sutta on mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. The word pana, breath, as I said, also means life. And that's the same pana that we have in the very first word of the precepts. Pana tipata Veramani Sikapatam Samadhyami. It is that pana. Atipata, literally falling upon, attacking. So that's the pana atipata, attacking life. It's incidentally not restricted to killing, though it's often translated as that. It's any kind of hostility or violent action towards life, not restricted to killing. So, do we have any further queries?
A quick one.
Yes, please, Todd.
Similar to Michael's question. Digawa ye mahantawa. The ye grammatically could have been elsewhere in the sentence. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, could it have been elsewhere in the sentence?
I mean, could it have been at the first word in the line, for example?
It could have been actually, yes. You're right. I've made a mistake here. I put it as an indeclinable, my silly mistake. Copy it's I put it as an I meaning indeclinable. Of course, it's the masculine plural. It's the same ye as the it means those who. Ye kechi whoever, and dighava ye mahantava. Just now recasting the sentence as you suggested, Todd. Yeva digha, yeva mahanta. Yes, but both of those would have been. It could have been put elsewhere. It could have been repeated as well. Again, that's just within the stylistic options, stylistic and metrical options of the poet.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So we could have a couple of recitals of this line before moving on. Are there any volunteers to recite? And if no volunteers come forward, I choose the volunteer. For those who aren't familiar, the system that I've been using for some years with the previous series of classes, that if at this stage, when I'm talking about you reciting, if I can see your faces, if you've left your video camera on, that's the signal to me that you are volunteering to be called on. And if anyone doesn't want to be called on, that's fine. If you just don't feel like it, no, you're perfectly well allowed to blank out your video. I should mention, however, for those who might feel as if they won't be able to put on a very good performance, it often doesn't matter. Often it's the mistakes, and when I pick up the mistakes, that actually help them and help everybody else. So a stumbling performance can actually be as useful as a flowing performance, and even more useful in some cases. So what I feel inclined to do is to call upon Shalaka. And you are welcome to read it, of course, in your native Devanagari script, or from the Romanized script. If you read it from the Devanagari Shalaka, just remember that I've made this error here. This Vanavasesa should be Va-anavasesa. There's just an error in the Devanagari there. This one in the English or the Roman script is correct.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so you have the floor, Shalaka.
ये केचि पाणभूतथे तसा वा थावरावा Anavasesa, Digha va ye, Mahanta va, Majjhima, Rasa ka anuka thula.
Okay, wonderful. So tell me, when you were reciting that, were you reciting it in your normal, natural Marathi accent?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful because to my non-Indian ear, it was virtually indistinguishable from how we would normally see Pali. So that, in fact, it's remarkable how little phonetic change there has been over the millennia, because you get, Marathi, Bengali, Hindi speakers, and to a very large extent, Sinhala speakers as well, pronouncing it all in a virtually identical way. That's one of the wonderful features of the Indian tradition, the oral tradition, has been so well preserved. And incidentally, if you want to have a good idea about how Vedic was pronounced, and here we're going back, to at least 1800 BC. It's a remarkable phenomenon, and you can find it all over the internet. Just look up, Brahmins chanting from the Vedas, and you will find that, from Gujarat to Bengal and Kashmir down to Tamil Nadu, the length and breadth of India, you will find virtually zero departures from the way that the Brahmins all over India still chant their Vedas. And that has been preserved remarkably over the millennia, without, when these groups just had no contact with each other. Is just this phenomenal preservation of the oral tradition. And I don't think there's any country that's been managed in to that degree of purity apart from in India. So this phenomenal preservation of the oral tradition still works for us. And I do say to people, when they say, well, how would Pali have been pronounced? And apart from a couple of very small and unimportant things, they will. Your best bet is to go and listen to the modern Brahmins chanting the Vedas, which you can find on the internet. That's likely to give you a very close idea of how Pali would have been pronounced in the time of the Buddha. We can't be absolutely sure, but I think I'm reasonably confident in saying that that's the best evidence that we have. And given the high degree of uniformity all over India, I think it's actually pretty strong evidence. So Suman, may I inquire, what is your native language, Suman?
Hindi.
Okay, wonderful. So we've got a Marathi speaker, now we have a Hindi speaker.
Yes.
So, begin the recitation, Suman.
Same one? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Ye kechi pranabhutati tasava thavarava anavasesa dighava ye mahantava majjhima rasaka anukathulla.
Okay, very good. Incidentally, Shalaka, did you notice my ear couldn't detect as a mere Englishman? I didn't detect any real difference between the Suman's Hindi pronunciation and your Marathi pronunciation. Is there any?
No, not much. I think Suman said prana, whereas I said parna.
Okay, right. That was did you say prana?
I said prana, yeah.
That's very interesting because you were just inserting the r, which is there in the Sanskrit, and of course in the modern Hindi as well. You were inserting that because you were used to saying it. But apart from that, the actual diction, the way it's pronounced, I couldn't detect any difference. Great. So this is further evidence for the likely that we're pronouncing it in the same way as the Buddha did long ago. And Ram, what is your native language?
I speak Tamil. But I also speak Hindi as well.
Ah, okay.
But it's very interesting that Tamil borrows a lot of words from Sanskrit. Like, for example, the example that you were giving, bhuta, preta, all of these are
Yes,
all
right.
in Tamil as well. Yeah.
So yeah, you borrowed many words, but it retains its own kind of as a distinct language from a distinct language group. So I'd be interested to hear you then as a native Tamil speaker,
Sure.
reciting this verse.
Yeah. Ye kechi pana bhutati tasava thavara anavasesa digha va ye mahantava majjhima rasaka anukathula.
Okay, well, so although the slight differences from the mode of pronunciation, it all came out as completely understandable to well, to me and to the Hindi and Marathi speakers among us. Rajit, what is your original native language?
Sinhalese.
Ah, of course, yes. Wow. So we have now a wonderful diversity of dictions here. So would you like to give us a recitation, Rajit, please?
Ye kechi pana bhutati tasava tavarava anavasesa digava ye mahantava majima rasaka anukatula.
Okay, great. So I think there was a little hint of the Sinhalese. You'd have said diga rather than digha. Is that right?
Probably.
Okay, fine. Because the Marathi and the Hindi speakers would make a clear distinction in g and gh and d and her. So I think, am I right in saying in Sinhala you retain the distinction in writing, that the distinction can sometimes be lost in speech?
Absolutely.
Okay, right. Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much then, Rajit. So now we come back to speakers who've been brought up in the English speech patterns. Would you like to give us a recitation, Todd?
Sure. Ye ke chipan bhutati tasava tha varava anavasesa dikava ye mahantava majjhima rasaka anukatula.
Okay, very good. Can you just a couple of the sounds you actually made even shorter than they would be in the Pali. Although it's a short vowel, you've still got to take care to make sure it's still fully pronounced, albeit short. If you're a native Hindi speaker, there's often a tendency to drop out, to compress a short into nothing. But can you just recite that first line again, Todd? Making care that the short is, although still short, nevertheless distinctly pronounced.
I'll give it a go.
Mm.
Ye ke chipana bhutati tasawa ta varawa anavasesa.
Okay, the tsa. That was actually pronounced slightly shorter, almost compressed into nothing. The reason I tend to make a little bit of a fuss about this, about the lengths of things, is that when we're chanting in unison, of course, it makes a big difference because you can get slightly out of step.
And I'm used to doing this as chanting, so it might be that I'm doing it's strange for me to try to do this in a speaking cadence.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah,
So-
the only reason we do it in a speaking cadence, well, two reasons. Firstly, I'm not a brilliant chanter, alas, and secondly, we're concentrating on the language and grammar here. One thing I do occasionally take the opportunity as the self-appointed policeman within Pali policeman within Samatha, is that in the precepts there are quite a few people who chant the line beginning with Gamesu. A lot of people chant with Michachara with a short ah, which is actually distinctly wrong. Gamesu Michachara. They're three long. Gamesu Michachara. If you're a native English speaker, there's a strong tendency to shorten the middle one because that would follow the cadences of the natural cadences of English.
Yeah.
But avoid the temptation. Gamesu Michachara. Okay, that's my Pali policeman bit done. And you see, even quite advanced people, quite very good, venerable teachers within our Samatha tradition. I'm trying to politely correct everybody, so we really do all get it right.
So let me ask.
Yeah, please, Todd.
Tasa,
Tasa.
So how would you, could you again pronounce could you again pronounce that? Because I'm trying to get the first ah.
Okay, tasa.
Tasa. So it's more of a ta-sa rather than a ta-sa.
I'm not quite sure I completely follow there, Todd. Say again.
I find a lot of times with the short ah, I pronounce it a bit like
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
okay. How is the short ah pronounced? Okay. There is a variety of different pronunciations. There is a slight variety between Hindi, Sinhala, and sometimes from the Thais as well. For example, there's the word, the Pali and Sanskrit, the word bala, meaning strength.
Bala.
Now, if you're a Sinhala speaker, that final ah, which would in Sanskrit and Pali be pronounced as an ah, becomes a very short bala. So or the word for a fool, bala. It becomes that final. I'll get Rajit to pronounce it in a pure Sinhala way. So pronounce the word bala, meaning a fool, in a Sinhalese way.
Well, I don't know exactly how to do it the Sinhalese way, but I just say bala.
Okay, right. That actually is closer to the Northern Indian pronunciation, which you may have as a result of hearing all of the Pali chants that you have.
I think you're quite right in saying that that in Sinhalese, if you're referring to somebody who is, because bala means somebody who is young as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say bala rather than bala.
Okay, right. So that so that is actually a feature of Sinhala as well. So a final short up is in most circumstances, not all, pronounced as an Hindi speakers and Marathi speakers in their native pronunciation would actually completely omit a final short ah. That is why you would hear Hindi and Marathi speakers talking about Buddh instead of Buddha, Pran instead of Prana, Vihar instead of Vihara, and so on.
Interestingly, all of these are in Tamil as well, but they go with a pattern with an at the end. Yeah.
Oh, of course, yes, because your neuter nouns you end in an so to say with strength. For example, for the word for strength, you say balam.
Balam, pranam, bhutam, all of it, yes.
Okay, right. And then if it's a masculine noun, you end in a n rather than a m, I think normally.
Yes.
Okay, right. Yeah. So the answer, back to your question, Todd, the answer is you will hear a variety of pronunciations. The most commonly accepted one is just a short ah sound. So it doesn't matter with or an ah. My preference would be for ah because that's the most commonly used. But just beware making it too short and gliding it into nothing or almost nothing.
Great. Thank you.
Right. And finally, Michael.
All right, my turn.
It is indeed.
All right. Ye kichi barna bhuttati dasawa tawarawa anawa sesa dighawaye mahantawa majhima rasaka anukatula.
Right. Well, you made a very good aspirations. There was only one very small thing that you fell down on. Can you pronounce it bhutati? Bhutati.
Bhuttati.
Okay, that was a lot better.
Is it the U that was too short?
I'm sorry, say again.
What was wrong with the first version?
Something went wrong. Maybe you just stumbled. I'm sorry, I can't exactly remember. I find myself, having picked you up on it, unable to reproduce the error such as it was. But it was just stuck in my mind. Hang on, I need to get Michael to redo that. So, alas, it fell through the sieve of my elderly memory.
I think I just sort of hesitated between
go on.
I think it has hesitated between my bhut and my ati. Yeah, I was trying to get that the voiced versus unvoiced consonant distinction down.
So which the voiced and which unvoiced?
Just something about having the unvoiced T in bhut, and then followed quite closely by a T with the.
Sorry.
No, they're both.
They're both unvoiced. One is unaspirated and the other
that's it.
Aspirated. See, I don't think you were mispronouncing at all. It was just you encountered a little bit of a tongue twister and hesitated for a moment. Anyway, second time round, it was perfect. So all is well, Michael.
Thank goodness.
All is well.
Yeah, it's I mean, for me as an English speaker, the sort of Punnett square of P and D and TH and DH, sort of all the combinations of voiced and unvoiced and aspirated and unaspirated is a bit of a challenge.
Well, you aren't alone. I mean, it is a bit of a challenge. I think for all English speakers. Oops, sorry. Oops. Trying to find lost my place in the iPad. Oops, here we are. The reason we make a little bit of a fuss about it. I play it down by saying a little bit of a fuss. Some people call me over fussy. Is, for example, that the difference between the aspirated and the unaspirated are if you're a native speaker, say particularly one of the northern Indian languages, Hindi or Marathi, for example, the da ta are completely different sounds, and they can give different meanings as well. For example, if you look at the word and the length of vowel as well. So just for example, to look at the words we've just been discussing, bala and bala are two entirely different words, and we can hear the distinction quite easily. I think was it you Rajit? You said that in Sinhalese it had the idea of conveyed the meaning of a child, a young person.
Yes, it's actually coming from ancient times, presumably, because somebody who is I mean, like in an English context, you could say somebody who is green. In other words, youthful and inexperienced could be called a bala.
Okay, right, yeah. Yeah.
No.
You're right there. It's because Bala originally, if you go back to Vedic times, it means that somebody young, inexperienced, or green, with no pejorative sense at all, just a youngster. And later on, it came to mean, you know, a foolish person with a pejorative sense. And so we have in the Mangala Sutta, for example, Sevanacha Balanam, you know, not hanging out with fools. So it's interesting that, you know, in Sinhala preserves the original meaning. So the original meaning as in Vedic, whereas in Pali, it more often than not has the pejorative sense of a fool. Sometimes it's been translated as a childish person, because then that embraces both meanings. The child, you can be a child and be childish, and there's nothing wrong about that because that's what children are. The pejorative sense is that if you still behave like a child when you are grown up. So that's probably how the word bala took on its meaning of foolish in Pali. Somebody who is behaving in a childish way without the wisdom of age. And another very obvious one, for example, aspirate and unaspirate, we've got the word, or two words, the atta and ha. So to the atta, which is the Pali version of the Sanskrit atman, often translated as soul, and atta with which is the plural of atta, meaning a goal or an objective. So the atta and atta to the ear certainly of the native speakers of the northern Indian languages would be completely different sounds. So Rajit, in Sinhala, would you make a distinct difference between the pronunciation of atta, self and soul, and atta, objectives, goals?
I think you would, but of course the Sanskrit version of Atha, the second one is Artha or
Atta,
Arthaya.
indeed it is. Yeah.
So in Sinhalese itself, there would be the two different meanings. I mean, two different pronunciations.
Of course, yeah.
But if I was just reading it, I could say Atta and Atha.
Okay, right, which would be right, which when the northern Indian speaker would say that exactly reflects the original. So do you still use the? Actually, it's interesting that Sri Lanka, although in a heavily Buddhist country, retains a lot of pure Sanskrit vocabulary rather than Pali. So you've got the Pali and the Sanskrit. I've noticed that from other Sinhala-speaking students in the class over the years. You know, a lot of pure Sanskrit words do appear even in your modern Sinhalese speech.
Yes, Sinhalese is a mixture. It's got a lot of Sanskrit and also Tamil as well, Tamil and South Indian languages, a little bit of that.
Oh, because of the heavy cultural admixture
Yes,
between the two, right?
Yes.
So we've just gone 8 o'clock, so we'll break now for 15 minutes. So what is it, 8:02? So 8:04. So we'll see each other again in exactly 15 minutes.
Okay.
What are you going to remind me to do?
Stop the recording.
Stop the
Or-
I guess more
recording.
precisely, pause it, right?
Pause the recording. Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you then.
Thank you.
Good. Right. So what I'm proposing to do, after taking any more questions or comments, if there are any, on verse 4, would be then to move on to verse 5, and beginning with Itta.
Just one observation on that. I thought while I was checking during the break.
Please.
Because the Tasawa Tavara, this is coming from Stavara.
Yes.
So I thought this phonetic difference is only in Pali, because Tavara means completely different meaning in Tamil. It's got nothing to do with stationary, but we exclusively use it to denote plants. But then, interestingly,
Okay.
but
Interesting that.
interestingly, I checked the etymology. It is actually coming from Sanskrit, and then it's taking the Pali roots, and then it's Tavara, but then Tavara means stationary, and hence plants are stationary, and then it's attributed to plants, and then it's stayed on, looks like. So
That's interesting. Okay, right. So you can kind of trace the meaning back, even though it's actually come to mean something different in real life. Interesting. And in Tamil, do you pronounce it Stavara or
no, Tavara. Very, very
I
simple.
see. So it's okay, right. Yeah, interesting that. Thank you, Ram. So, any more on verse 4? But if there are things you think of later, you can always raise the queries in later classes. That's not a problem at all. So I'll call up then verse 5. We are. And here we've got even more of a tongue twister because we've got the ta, we've got the dental voiced the, followed by the retroflex unvoiced doubled aspirated ta, ta. Dittava yeva aditta ye ch dure vasanti avidure bhutava sambhavesi va sabbasatta bhavantu sukhitatta. So ditta and aditta, and of course the word ditti as in sammaditti. This is one illustration of why it's often so useful to go back to the Sanskrit to see the derivations of these words. So we have the Sanskrit root drish, meaning to see. You make a regular past participle out of it by adding ta, just as regular past participle from bhuta. It is a regular and inviolable rule of Sanskrit phonetics, Sanskrit internal sandhi, that whenever you get a palatal sh and a dental t together, they always become retroflex. So what I mean is this. It is not drishta, it is drishta.
Are you writing, James?
Sorry, thank you for reminding me. Why was everyone else so you all meant to shout immediately when you see that I'm writing on the iPad and have forgotten to share. So the point I was making, we've got in the root drish, we've got the palatal, this S with a slash over. It's the one that in Devanagari is written like that. I think among the Hindi speakers you call it Shankarvala Sha or something like that. Anyway, it's the palatal sh, and whenever the sh is followed by a ta, or write it in Roman sh followed by a ta, it always becomes retroflex shta in Sanskrit. So this accounts for dikta, because Pali doesn't have this r vowel, and anything that's a sh in Sanskrit almost automatically becomes a doubled t in Pali. So drishta becomes ditta. Drishta, ditta. And also note that where in Sanskrit you've got a sibilant, a sh or a s, followed by a consonant, that tends to become an aspirated consonant in Sanskrit, in Pali rather. For example, in Sanskrit, skandha, is routinely and predictably becomes kandha in Pali. So drishta will predictably become ditta in Pali. And we see the same phenomenon where we make a verbal noun out of it. One of the ways, several ways of forming a verbal noun in Sanskrit is just to add ti to the root. So drishti in Sanskrit it will become then drishti. They'll both become the subdot of the retroflex, the drishti, and predictably in Pali will become ditti. So ditti, meaning a view as in samadhitti, commonly translated as right view, is traceable back to the root drish, meaning to see. Now, there's a good illustration here of why it's useful to go back to Sanskrit. Because in the last line, or the last verse in the Karanyametta Sutta, let me just call it up here to illustrate. Oh no, it's the top. Here we are. You see here, here we are. It's the perfect illustration. Dittincha anupagamma silavada sanena sampanno. To one who didn't understand the etymology, you would not see any connection between the ditti there, the first word of that line, and dasana there. They are from the same root. And if you go back to Sanskrit, that becomes very clear, because drish, as I said, drish, verbal noun drishti, but by regular formation, another way of forming the verbal noun, seeing, is with guna, and drish becomes darshana. So we can...
I think you're writing.
Sorry, thank you for reminding me. So drish, darshana, regular formation, that is one of the reasons that we so often go back to Sanskrit to see what the root is. If you go back to drish, drishti, darshana, you can see how they are words from the same root. Whereas if you look at Pali, ditti, dasana, it's not immediately apparent, or maybe not apparent at all, but it does become apparent when you go back to the Sanskrit root. So they're both from the same root, but with slightly different meanings. So ditti they both mean seeing ultimately, drishti and darshana, ditti, dasana. But ditti has come to mean a view, as in holding a view, a point of view, as we get samadhitti. Whereas dasana has more the meaning of vision in the way that we use it in English, like wisdom, a person of vision. And dasana, seeing in that way, it has that same meaning in Pali that we give it in English. Whereas, for example, in modern Hindi, I don't know if you do the same in Marathi, you go to see the Guru Ke Darshan, means just to sit at the feet of the Guru and see him. Literally, it means the seeing of the Guru. Do you use? I know you use that expression in Hindi, but do you use it in Marathi as well?
Yes, it is the same expression.
Okay,
Guru
so
darshan. Yes.
okay, so you have the darshan of the Guru. It's where traditionally, even if no words are spoken, you will just be sitting in the presence of the holy man, the guru, having darshan of him, literally having seeing of him. So back to where we were. So we've seen the ditti, now this is the ditta, which is a past participle adjective, meaning seen and therefore visible. And this is the masculine plural form, so we're including in our metta all of these beings, ditta, va, whether visible, ditta vayeva aditta, whether seen or unseen. That's whether they're visible to our human eye or not visible. It could also mean out of sight, but the word aditta actually literally means unseen or invisible. Yecha, and those who yecha dure vasanti avidure. So dura just means far or distant. It's both a noun and an adjective. So dura can mean the distance and also something that is far away. Vasanti is from the root vas, meaning to dwell. Let me call up iPad again. Thus, to dwell or to live somewhere. Often with the prefix ni, you often find that the Blessed One was nivasati, meaning was dwelling in such and such a place. By a curious quirk of linguistic history, we have our verb to be in English, which is etymologically cognate with the Sanskrit and Vedic bhu. We have our third person singular form is, which is cognate with Sanskrit asti and Pali ati. It happens with just a very few verbs that we use a different root for different tenses of the verb. One of those verbs is be, where we use several different roots to conjugate that verb. Another very common one in English is the verb to go. So, for example, we don't say for the past tense, we don't say goed, we say went. So we use actually a different root for the past tense. Our past tense was, in fact, is etymologically the same word as that vas, that have dwelt, abided, what was there. So that our English word was is from the same Indo-European root from which Sanskrit has vas, to be somewhere or to dwell. Looking at the use of the words here, dure and avidure, dure here is used as the neuter noun. So dure, that's the locative form meaning in the distance. This word at the end of the line, the opposite of it, avidure, not far away. It could equally have been adure, equally correctly, but the vi is the separative prefix. It's a bit like saying dure and vidure, far and far away. That's the force of the adding of the vi here. So yichadure vasanti, and those who live in the distance, those who live afar, and avidure, not far away. Bhutava sambhave siva. Now here we see bhuta used in a slightly different meaning. In the previous line, bhuta meant a being. A bhuta is a living being, literally a breath being. It's got a slightly different meaning, but here, bhuta means those who have already come into existence, and specifically those who have come into existence in their current physical form. And it's contrasted with, sambhavesi. The prefix sam very often indicates the culmination or fruition or completion of an action or of a process. So from bhu, we have the verbal noun bhava.
Are you writing?
Sorry, thank you. How much did you miss? Just the sam and the bhu and bhava, was it?
Yes,
Okay,
I think that was
thank you.
reasonable.
So bhu to be bhava, being, or more specifically coming into being, the process of becoming. Punarbhava, Puno bhava in Pali means just, it's one of the words for rebirth, literally again being, again coming into being. If you put the sam in front of it, so the bhava can reflect a process of coming into being, whereas sambhava, the force of the sam, is the culmination of the process. Therefore, sambhava actually means birth, as in being physically born. It's the culmination of this gradual process that a being starts as an embryo, continues its process of growing and being, and the sambhava is the culmination of that process, birth as a separate individual. And the name, the Tibetan, he was Indian, but famous in Tibet, the Padma Sambhava. Padma Sambhava literally means lotus birth, means he whose birth took place in a lotus, is the meaning of Padma Sambhava. So we're looking here at, in the second line of verse 5, Bhutava Sambhave Siva. Bhutava is those who are already beings, have come into being, and Sambhava Esi, birth wishing, those who are not yet born but desiring to be born. The Esi comes from the root ish. Yeah, it's a slightly irregular verb. It's the root is ish, and it makes its present tense ichati, and it makes one of the ways of forming a verbal noun is esha, which becomes esa in Pali, which means a wish. A far more common word, actually, and the word I think commonly used in, I know certainly in modern Hindi, an alternative form is icha, meaning a desire or a wish. But they're both from the same root, but a slightly irregular alter from a sh to a ch, esha to icha. So if you are, and so an eshin, Pali esin, is somebody who has an esha or an esa, somebody who has a wish. So if you were sambhava esin, which by Sanskrit becomes sambhavesi, it means you are birth wishing. You have a desire to be born. So what this verse means is that we are including in our metta bhutava sambhavesi va. By the way, the va would here corresponds to English not or but both and, or whether those already born or those wishing to be born. You can say it in two different ways in English. The use of the va actually is inclusive rather than exclusive. So both those who have been born and those still desiring to be born, but not yet born. So bhutava sambhavesi va sabbasatta bhavantu sukhitatta.
Isn't that sabbe?
I'm sorry, say again?
Isn't that sabbe satta?
Ah, yes. You took the words out of my mouth, Ram. You can say equally correctly sabbe satta, and I'll explain this on the iPad. You've got sabba, it's sarva in Sanskrit and sabba in Pali, meaning all, and it can be singular or plural. It works both. Let me just first explain the word satta. It's from the slightly irregular root as, meaning to be. It makes you would expect the plural to be asanti, but it's not. It's just the at drop, so santi in both Pali and Sanskrit. And it makes the stem of the present participle sat, meaning that which is. It's the present participle being, something that is. It also means reality. So this being and reality, and this is a very productive root. A lot of words are made from it. So from sat, it means, originally it just means being, that which is in being. Then by extension is that which really is, that which is good. So as a prefix sat, you have the sadguru, you have the saddharma, means the good law. The Saddharma Pundarika Sutta Sutra, it's a Sanskrit, means the sutra of the lotus of the good law. So it means, and also it means good, being good, and also truthful. So it's from that same word. The satya is that which really is, and it's the word meaning truth. And it's the one that in Pali becomes satya. Wherever you get a tya in Sanskrit, it tends to become a ch in Pali. Satya, satya. We find it in the logo of the Republic of India, it's in Satyameva Jayate. It is the truth that will be victorious. It is the truth that will conquer. So back to where we were, made now from the present participle, we get sat plus toi. Toi makes an abstract noun very often. So sattva originally means just the quality of beingness. Then by extension, it comes to refer to an actual being, and that's how we get sabbe satta or sabba satta bhavantu sukhitatta. Incidentally, for those of you who know Latin, we have this root as and the plural santi with the dropping of the a. In Latin, you see exactly the same phenomenon. To be is esse, but they are is sunt. So some of the specific irregularities in Sanskrit and Pali we find directly reflected in Latin. For example, we are in Latin, you'd expect it to be something like es sumus, but it's just sumus. We are in Sanskrit, you would expect to see asmaha, but it's just smaha, dropping that initial vowel. So just by an interesting etymological quirk, we find that same phenomenon repeated in Latin. Another point, so Sanskrit sattva and Pali satta. Sattva, incidentally, has yet an exit. There's so many words are created out of the simple roots that sattva, also within Ayurvedic medicine, for example, has like something like the pure essence of something, and you have sattvic food, for example, which is not rajasic, tamasic, but sattvic food, which is the best and the purest food for you. It's from that same root. Sattva, nouns ending in twa, and they're very, very common, are almost invariably neuter. So the word for being is sattvam. However, where it refers by extension to a being, in other words, a creature that exists, it's treated as masculine, both in Sanskrit and in Pali. That is why the plural of satta or sattva in this context isn't sattani, but satta, sabbe satta, not sabbani, sattani. Now, Ram, I think you were possibly querying why sabba satta, not sabbe satta. Okay, fine. The reason actually is very simple. You both are equally correct. What happens is you can have you've got sabba meaning all. It makes its masculine plural with an a, so sabbe, so sabbe satta, all beings, and it's the same in Sanskrit. We sarve sattvaha. You separate out the adjective from the noun there, the sarva, sabba, from satta, sarve sattvaha, sabbe satta. It is equally correct and very, very frequent to combine the two words into one compound, which they call samasa in Sanskrit, literally throwing together. So you can have sabbe satta or compound them into one word. We put in a hyphen when we're writing it in Roman script just to help the student. It wouldn't be done in the Devanagari script. So sabba satta. When you put two words together into one compound word, it's only the second or last word, there can be more than two, that is fully declined. The ones before the end remain in their stem form in a compound. So as with two separated words, sabbe satta, or as one samasa, one compound word, sabba satta, both equally correct. Is there any difference of meaning? Maybe a slight difference of emphasis. Sabbe satta, separating out the words, could possibly be more the idea of multiplicity, concentrating on lots of individuals, whereas if you put it as a compound sabba satta, that's more regarding it as one composite entity rather than a multiplicity of separate individuals. It's a bit the same as in English, where we might say all persons and everyone. It means essentially the same thing, but all persons emphasizes lots of individuals, whereas everyone doesn't look at the individuals individually, just as a massive group. There's I detect, I don't think I've got, perfect evidence for this, but I detect that it's the same kind of idea in Sanskrit. But here you'll see effectively they're used indiscriminately, because in this verse 5 we have sabbasata, and let me call it up. In verse 5, sabbasata, as I said, in the Devanagari, I put in the hyphen here simply to assist the students to see that that's where the word break is. If you're writing a compound, a samasa in the Devanagari, you write it as if it were all one word. If we go up to verse 3, we see sabbe sata, separated out. Now separated, not a samasa, two separate words. So sabbe has its full declensional ending, the a of the masculine plural, and also written as separate words as well. So this is the way I've written it here in the Devanagari, is how you would normally see it written, sabbe sata. Also, another point, we very often see, that the verb endings in the indicative, typically ati and anti, for the third singular and third plural. You can have that's the indicative, just a statement of fact. You can make that imperative, like an third person imperative, by changing that T to tu. And that's one of the simplest bits of grammar, because you find routinely across the language, whenever you find a verb ending T or ati or nti or anti, just change the I to u, and that's like, it expresses a wish. Bhavatu sabbamangalam rakhantu sabbadevata. Bhavatu sabbamangalam. May all blessings come into existence for us. Rakhantu sabbadevata. May all the devatas, may all the gods, rakhantu, protect. And we're seeing that phenomenon here. Sabbasata bhavantu sukhitata. If we said sabbasata bhavanti sukhitata, it would be very wonderful if it were true, but sadly it is not true. That would be a statement of fact. All beings are happy. Sadly, not true. But we can say sabbasata bhavantu sukhitata, that is expressing the wish that all beings be happy. I'll just say a word on the difference between, we've seen in again in line in verse 3, huntu is sukhinova kimnu huntu. We see it here in the same way, huntu and bhavantu. May they be. What is the difference in meaning? There is zero difference in meaning. All that has happened is that in Sanskrit, the only form that would be allowed would be the bhavantu. What has happened is that it's become, to use a linguist phrase, lenited or softened in Pali. So you can say bhavati in Sanskrit. In Pali, you can say bhavati or soften it to bhoti. It's the same meaning. Sanskrit doesn't allow that alternative light form, but Pali does. So huntu there and bhavantu are just variant forms of exactly the same word with exactly the same meaning. Let it be so. If you're granting I want to do so, say let it be so. In Sanskrit, you would say evam bhavatu. Thus may it be. In other words, you're agreeing that it should be so. In Pali, you can say exactly the same way, evam bhavatu, or equally correctly, evam hotu, without any distinction of meaning. And finally, sukhitata. What has happened with sukhitata? You have the, oops, lost my iPad. Where's my iPad gone? Oh, there we are. We have sukha, opposite, as we know, of dukkha. In Sanskrit, dukkha, Pali dukkha. So sukha is both a noun and an adjective. It's a neuter noun, sukham, meaning, generally speaking, happiness, and sukha equally as an adjective meaning happy. Out of this adjective / noun sukha, you can make what's known as a causative verb, to make somebody happy. Not sukhati, but sukhayati. You often see in this ending, instead of ati, ayati. That very frequently indicates a causative, making something be. So sukhayati means to cause to be happy, to make happy. Verbs ending in the ayati make a past participle just in ita. So the difference between sukha and sukhita, sukha just means happy, sukhita means made happy. So if you were to sukha, you're happy in yourself. Sukhita suggests that someone or something has made you sukha, caused you to be sukha. If you add on the word atta, meaning self, it's happy selved, literally. So sukhitata would mean literally happy selved, happy in themselves. Is it really different from just sukhita, sukhitata? I don't think there's really any strongly discernible difference in meaning. Happy and happy selved. We don't use the word happy selved in English, but we could, and we would understand what we meant if we said it.
I have a
Yeah,
question
please, Michael. Yes.
about the atta. Is that happy made happy by, like, with the agent being the self, or is it made happy with respect to the self?
No, this is actually a compound possessive adjective. It means people who have selves that have been made happy.
I see. So it's selves and selves that
Okay.
have been. I see.
Yeah. It's known as a bahuvrihi compound, actually. There's somebody who has an atta that has been made happy. That's slightly complex area, these bahuvrihi compounds. So just as in English we would say, what is a happy selved person? It's a person whose self has been made happy. And it's pretty much the same construction in Sanskrit, just as we talk about blue-eyed, somebody whose eyes are blue. That would be called a bahuvrihi or bahubihi compound in Pali. In this particular compound, the agent, the person who has made that person happy, is just not expressed. It's expressed here as a passive. Just means who have been made happy selved, who have been made happy in themselves. So I see a raised hand from T.
Hello?
I forget what the T stands for. Remind me.
Talia.
Oh, Talia. Sorry, I should have remembered. Talia.
Hello. So, happy selved, would it be maintaining well-being in oneself? So, like, making oneself happy, it wouldn't be that?
I think it is not here, and the particular reason I think it's not is because of the form of the element sukhita. So sukhita is distinctly the past participle of the causative verb. Sukha, happy, sukhayati, to make happy. Sukhita means somebody who has been made happy. So you are the recipient of the act of making happy. So I can't escape here from the fact that grammatically sukhita is the past participle of a causative verb.
So made happy in oneself.
That literally made happy selved. I'm a little okay. I know that that's not good idiomatic English, but I'm very wary, as you will discover. Those who stay with me, the brave ones who stay with me, will discover more and more that I'm very wary of saying, well, that's exactly the equivalent of the English so and so. Very often it's not. Happy in them, if you're happy in yourself, that has a certain kind of meaning in English. And if you say, well, sukhitata means happy in yourself, there's a risk of that taking your mind away from understanding it from within the Pali. So what I'm constantly trying to do is to invite you to see the word from inside the Pali, rather than say, oh, I've got it because in English it means that. Well, maybe you haven't quite got it. See it in Pali. I know that I've annoyed a lot of people by just refusing to give them a translation. I said, well, my job here is to lead you inside the life of the Pali word. We are using the medium of the English language to explain it, but I want your understanding of it to be from within the Pali. So I mean, this happens again and again. You try to turn something into English, and you will often say something that sounds a bit clumsy, but exactly reflects the Sanskrit or the Pali, and resist the temptation to then transpose that into a familiar idiomatic English phrase, because that can distract you away from the meaning.
Yes, lovely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Talia. Thank you for raising that point. I can't quite remember whether I have, with this group, explained the ka ending. Not the ending, it's part of the root. It's actually the root itself, the full root is kan, but when it occurs at the end of a word as part of a compound, the n drops and it becomes ka. And this kan originally means to dig, actually, or to hollow something out. So kanati in Sanskrit means just digs. And so the ka has been variously interpreted to mean a space. Of suk is the prefix, just meaning good, beautiful, lovely, desirable. Sukha has been interpreted to mean in a good place, in a good space, which is possible. Another far more physical interpretation is that the cart was the hollow in a wheel, the old carts where the axle fitted. And if the axle fitted well into the socket in the wheel, that was sukha, it revolved, gave you a smooth journey. It revolved smoothly. That's one interpretation. Also, it's like, for example, where your joints, the bone, the end of a bone will fit nicely into your socket, and if it rotates nicely in the socket, that is sukha. It's in its good socket, in its good hole, good space. This ka can also be used on its own to mean empty space like sky. So, for example, Haga in Sanskrit, literally a space goer, is a word for a bird, someone who flies through space. Kaga. Quite entertainingly, this kan came into Latin And our word canal comes from that same root. It's a river or a water channel, channel and canal, by the way, both from can, something that has been dug by human hand rather than a naturally formed river. The word cave is from that same, a hollow, something is hollow, a hollow in a mountainside, for example, is a cave. It's from that root meaning empty space. Even more entertainingly, to my mind, it came into Greek as a cha, that's ka, as a ka, classical Greek, ka, modern Greek would pronounce cha. The most common noun ending in Greek is os. No. Chaos. You see, chaos. The idea is it's the primordial emptiness before we had structures and order. So the chaos. In fact, if you look in the early, maybe even the first one or two verses of the Bible, when before the creation everything was tohu bohu, kind of empty chaos. So the idea of emptiness means there's no orderly structure there. And that's where we get the meaning of chaos, which originally meant emptiness. And of course also the word a chasm. So it's a great empty space, a great opening in the ground. So we get kan, sukha, dukkha, canal, cave, chaos, and chasm, all from this wonderful primitive root ka and kan, meaning to hollow out or to dig. And I think probably all of you know the prefixes su and du. Su is just a prefix meaning anything that's good, nice, beautiful, desirable. And the opposite of it is du. In Sanskrit, we have dukkha, bad space or badly fitting. And it's the dukkha that becomes dukkha in Pali. It's from that same, the root actually is dus, or dush. And it's the same from which you get dosha. In Sanskrit, it's from that same root. A dosha means a vice or a fault, something wrong. And if you are pradushta, you are corrupted or evil. So okay, I think that's all I've got to say on verse 5, but I will most readily take any comments or questions. Oh, one thing, Suman, please tell me correctly. Is your name correctly pronounced Suman or Suman? Because I think both would be correct names in Sanskrit, certainly, with slightly different meanings. So how is your good name pronounced?
It's Suman.
Suman, okay, just in Sanskrit, Sumanas, meaning of good mind, good-minded.
Thank you. Yeah, it's also means flower.
Flower?
Yeah.
Any particular kind of flower?
Oh, just in general, flower. It means flower.
I wonder if that's because it's something that makes the mind happy. It makes you happy-minded if you see
Yes.
see the flowers. This is another word, this root man, that we will be reverting to quite often because it's a very frequent occurrence, and it's one of the key words in Sanskrit and Pali, and particularly in Buddhist doctrine.
Can I ask a question then?
Please, Rajit, of course.
So I've actually got two questions, but the first question is, the way you're teaching, you suggest that Sanskrit seems to be older than Pali, and that's been a philological argument, and I'm sure that there's a case for saying that. but you know that there was this old argument about whether the Pali texts were older than the Sanskrit texts or vice versa, and it turned out that the Pali ones were older than Sanskrit. But from a linguistic perspective, you say that Sanskrit is older than Pali, or that's what it seems. That's how you're teaching.
Okay, that's how some of what I say is expressed in a kind of shorthand, rather than going into an explanation each time. But now you have specifically raised that point. I will deal with it. As for how old Pali is, the actual hard evidence we have, of course, is the Pali Canon, which we can pretty accurately date back to, you know, the time of the Buddha, even though it wasn't actually committed to writing until approximately 400 years after the death of the Buddha in Sri Lanka. So we owe a lot to the Sri Lankans for having actually committed the Pali Canon to writing.
Can I just intercede there and just mention that according to the papers of Lan's cousins, they could have been actually recorded in South India instead.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yes.
Okay. That's very honest of you to say that,
well,
rather than as a Sri Lankan thing.
Well, he said it was done in the Tamil country, believe it or not.
In the Tamil country?
Yes.
Oh, well. I'd better reread a bit of Lance Cousins, hadn't I? Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. So let us, on the point of which is older, I talk about Sanskrit, but because everyone knows the word Sanskrit, but more correctly, possibly, I should be referring to Vedic. We talk about the Vedic roots. So the Rig Veda, for example, we can date back to, I think the best scholarly estimate now is around about 1800 BC. So that the Rig Veda predates the language of the Buddha, or the language as recorded from the Buddha. Whether he actually spoke exactly Pali, we don't know. Clearly something very close to it, if not exactly it. But remember, the Rig Veda had already been in existence for 1300 years, at least, maybe a bit more, we don't know, by the time of the Buddha. Now, which is older? There's a lot of evidence to show that the Vedic forms are closer to the even more ancient common Indo-European roots. There's a lot of evidence to show that the Pali and other Prakrit forms as well. So there's the Ardha Magadhi and the language of the Jains, for example. There's a lot of evidence to show, just internal linguistic evidence, that let's just stick to Pali because I didn't really know the Ardha Magadhi, that the Pali forms are clearly colloquial derivations of more complex Vedic forms. Just the example we've been looking at now, the root drish, which we get Sanskrit drishti and darshana, that turn up in Pali as ditti dasana. Now, it is fairly clear that the drishti, the drish root, is older than ditti and the dasana, just by the internal evidence. If you look at the word, for example, the root ri, meaning to go, the old root ri, and it makes a verbal noun artha, means the place that you go to, your destination, the objective. That's where so artha very often means the original meaning was the goal or the destination of something. And yet in Pali, it becomes atta by a standard phonetic mutation from r plus a consonant to doubling that consonant in Pali. You have the Sanskrit asti turns up in Pali as atti. Now, asti turns up in German as ist. and in English as is. It turns up in Latin as est. It turns up in Russian as есть, есть. So you have asti, ist, est, есть, all with exactly the same meaning, going back to an Indo-European root, and yet the ati form demonstrates a standard phonetic variation from Sanskrit, the sibilant plus t becoming aspirated t. So there's an arrow there. Aspirated t in Pali. All of this is just very, very strong evidence for the Pali forms being linguistic mutations of an older form. I mean, there are hundreds of examples which we'll look at as we go along. And for example, let's look at our well-known word pamada, which basically is everything that is the opposite of sati, the opposite of mindfulness. When you can lose it, when your mind's rushing off, it is pamada. In Sanskrit, that is pramada, with the prefix pra. So you can't have a pra, or hardly ever have a pra in Pali. It just becomes at the beginning of a word a p, and with a vowel before it, a double p. So pramada Sanskrit and the pramada Sanskrit negate it, apramada, often translated as something like heedfulness, but it's it closely overlaps with mindfulness, quiet mindfulness. So in Pali, you can equally negate a word by putting an a, but what happens in Pali? You double the p. Why do you double the p? Because it originally was a consonant cluster, and when you cannot start a word with a double consonant. You can start it with a pr, but you can't start a word with a double p. But you can have double p in the middle of a word. So apamada. Again, that's a very strong indication that the Sanskrit form is older. Or I should say the Vedic form is older. Remember that the word Sanskrit itself means kind of refined, composed. The literal word is Sanskrita, composed, put together. From that same root we get sanskara, in Pali sankara, as opposed to the Prakrits, Sanskrita, Prakrita, Sanskrita composed, refined, Prakrita natural. It's no coincidence, by the way, that the Prakrita, the natural languages, can you spot the similarity there? Something occurs naturally, produces itself. Prakrita, procreate. It's etymologically the same. It can naturally gives birth to itself. What does nature do? It procreates itself. From the animal kingdom, human kingdom, plant kingdom, there's the prakriti going on, the natural procreation. So back to your question, Rajit, and the evidence is overwhelmingly in favor of Vedic being the older form. I think I'm going to have to get used to talking about Vedic rather than Sanskrit, because Sanskrit you associate with Panini, who can formalize the grammar, the great grammarian Panini, and how he composed that grammar in 500 BC. And he's one of the great geniuses of all time. To do a work like that about the same time as the Buddha lived. So it's what happened was Vedic was the grammar wasn't as tight as Sanskrit. It was a much looser language, lots of complex variant forms. There was risk. Panini saw the risk of the ancient chants, the ancient Vedic hymns being corrupted and lost. So it was Panini who formulated the rules, what he regarded as good speech, correct speech. And that came to be known as the Sanskrita, composed, refined, which actually that is used in contradistinction to Vedic, which was no much looser form of the language, and far more complex actually. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I'd be very interested to see evidence to show that the Pali as we know it is older than Vedic as we know it. Say that Pali is older than classical Sanskrit, I can accept that, but older than actual Vedic, older than the language of the Rig Veda, I would.
No, you have cleared it very well. I mean, the argument with the scholars, the argument the scholars had was to work out if the Sanskrit Buddhist texts were older or newer than the Pali Buddhist texts.
Okay, fine.
And they established, of course, that the Pali ones were older. But when it comes to linguistics, we can see that from what you're saying that Vedic is much older than Pali, which is like a derived form of Vedic.
Yeah. I'm sorry, so say that very last bit again, I didn't catch.
No, from what you say, we can see that Pali is like a derived kind of Vedic.
Indeed so, yes, yeah.
Yes.
So I would say that classical Sanskrit, so the language of the Mahabharata, for example, Mahabharata, is rather much later than Vedic. And you could say that Pali traces itself not to classical Sanskrit, but its direct ancestry is in Vedic. And I'm not sure, I mean, I'd be happy to see it. I don't think there's any serious scholarly dispute about that.
No, thank you very much. That's actually what I wanted to know. One more, if I may ask a banal question. Many languages lack certain sounds. So I would just like to ask you about the fact that the letter F is missing from these Indian languages.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. You've got the letter, there are several letters that are missing. There's the letter F. There's the sound ch, that's in Greek, that's not an X, that's the Greek ch sound, alternatively pronounced as a ch. There's the th sound, like, so these Africas, the th do not exist in the northern Indian languages. They appear in the form of aspirate stops. So instead of a f, you get a p, and instead of a ch, you get a k. Instead of a th, you get a t. It's just a phonetic phenomenon of the northern Indian languages. In fact, in classical Greek, these sounds th, ch, and th were actually pronounced the same as they would have been in Sanskrit, as a p, and t. It was only in the later development of Greek that they came to be pronounced as th, ch, and th. And so in modern Hindi, for example, where you have the f and ch sounds, you tend to have those only when they've come in via Urdu, where via Persian and Arabic, where you have the f and the ch. And you still find certain Hindi speakers, and I'm thinking particularly ones who are born and bred in India and have English as a second language, will still have a bit of difficulty in saying a pure English f. They'll say p instead. They'll say think instead of think, and 50 instead of 50. So it's still that phenomenon still remains in modern times. So I don't know why it is. It just is so. So this doesn't really answer your question. It simply sets out what I happen to know on the subject.
But it is fascinating that in the ancient world, the letter F, even in ancient Greek, might not have been pronounced the way we think it was pronounced.
That's perfectly possible, and all we can do there is look for clues. For example, in ancient Greek, we have this which in modern Greek was about f. Now, Latin had the letter F. We know that. Why, when the Latin speakers heard the Greeks saying a word like philos, meaning a friend, why did they write it with a PH? Why did they write it with a PH? Why didn't they write it with an F? Because they already had their own sound and their own letter for that sound. So if the ancient Greeks were saying philos, you would have expected Romans to be writing it with an F. Why didn't they? Because back in those times, what they heard the ancient Greeks saying was pilos, the aspirated p. So they had both an unaspirated p and the aspirated p. So the way that it came in to be written in Latin is like, it's not conclusive proof, but it's the best evidence currently available that the Romans wrote it with a PH because they heard it as a p. So that sound has mutated from the ancient Greek to modern Greek, where it's a f, like our Roman and Germanic f.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay, this has been a fascinating class. Thank you so much for joining me. We've run a bit over time, but as they say, time flies when you're enjoying yourself. So I thank you all for being with me, and hopefully I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you all.
Thanks
Bye.
a million.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you, James.
Okay,
Thank you
bye
so
then.
much.
Bye.
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 Thanks, James.
Okay, bye, Alison. Thank you.
Bye.